and thank you for this opportunity, Professor Data, to speak to such a diverse group. I do have to admit, I'm an engineer. I'm a professor of electrical engineering at the University of British Columbia. Although I have interests in entrepreneurship and building an entrepreneurial ecosystem at the university and in Canada. So that's really what connected me with Dr. Yousaf and Dr. Usman, who are from the other side of the world. So what I want to spend the next 12 minutes discussing is some of the work that we pursued in terms of promoting green venturing. And by green venturing, what we mean is entrepreneurial activities that prioritize activities that help preserve or maintain the environment. So they have to have some sort of green element to them. And before I jump into the actual work, I think it is worth noting just the fact that this collaboration really brought together perspectives from literally the other side of the globe. So Dr. Yousaf and Dr. Usman, they approached me to visit during their sabbatical, at UBC during their sabbatical. And when I looked at where they're from, literally it's night and day. So there's a 12-hour time difference. And really, it can feel like a whole different world. And what I really appreciated about this opportunity was that I learned so much from them, from their perspectives, and I also really came to get a better sense of why green venturing and sustainable entrepreneurship is so important. I have to admit, my interest in entrepreneurship from Canada. It's the sustainability aspect is more a nice to have, right? Not necessarily a need to have. But when I had several conversations with Dr. Yousaf and Usman, I came to appreciate the urgency with which they are approaching this research problem. And of course, that urgency is, driven in large part, as many of us are aware, of devastating floods in Pakistan in 2020. Livelihoods taken away, thousands had their lives taken away, and the monetary damage caused by these floods makes it probably one of the worst natural disasters in human history. And I don't need to remind you all that the cause of the floods and then the subsequent heat wave. So after everybody lost their homes, there was an enormous heat wave afterwards. Was linked to climate change and linked directly to the excessive emissions of CO2. And somebody speaking about economic disparity, but one thing that I really came to appreciate by talking with Dr. Yousaf and Usman is the massive disparity in emissions. So this chart here really hits home for me. When I look at the top countries in terms of CO2 emissions, I see Canada at number 7, and we only have a population of 36 million and one of the highest per capita emission rates in the world. And then when I look at Pakistan, all the way down at 31, they have a population that's almost 9 times more than Canada, yet they account for a fraction, maybe 20% of the emissions that are generated in Canada. So you can imagine when I had conversations with Dr. Yousaf and Dr. Usman, and when they first visited Canada, they were remarking about all the big, giant houses that we all live in, and speculating about how much energy it costs to power those houses. And it was really sobering to think that the high quality of life, the high standard of life that we enjoy in Canada is directly contributing to disasters around the world, and disasters that are disproportionately affecting densely populated countries near the equator. So I think really from this cultural exchange that I got to enjoy with my two colleagues, I also developed a strong appreciation for green venturing and the absolute need to encourage young people to pursue sustainable entrepreneurship. In terms of the selection, so we did a research study in which we looked at students and whether or not green venturing is something that they're willing to consider. In terms of the location for the study, I think it's an ideal one. I'm at UBC, the University of British Columbia. We are situated in Kelowna. The campus that I'm in is relatively small, so is Kelowna. Kelowna is a medium or small size city in Canada. It is also one of the top entrepreneurial regions in Canada. So despite its small size, there's a very dynamic entrepreneurial energy in Kelowna, which provided a good environment for Dr. Yousaf and Usman to enjoy their sabbatical. And at UBC, my university, I play I play a big role in terms of fostering an entrepreneurial ecosystem. I participated in the creation of several companies, technology-based companies. So I felt that this was an appropriate location to conduct the study, and the results are probably generalizable to a lot of North American cities. So in terms of the research question, we asked a really simple research question, and the results I'm going to share are still preliminary, but really we want to know what role training and intervention, what role can these play in fostering green entrepreneurial intentions amongst Canadian undergrad students. And again, by green entrepreneurial intentions, we mean, well, there's several layers to that. First of all, we're interested in students who may potentially have an interest in entrepreneurship. And then on top of that, we really want to understand, how well do they appreciate sustainability? And then down the road, what are their actual intentions of pursuing venture creation that have a green aspect to it? So in terms of answering this research question, what we did is we broke up several factors that we wanted to investigate. And I've listed them here, and I'll talk a little bit about them and their relationship to each other. First of all, we wanted to understand socioeconomic conditions. So for all of the participants in our study, we wanted to know whether their socioeconomic conditions are likely to promote entrepreneurial career decisions. We wanted to look at their sustainable entrepreneurial attitudes. So in terms of entrepreneurship, how much do they lean towards considering sustainability? We wanted to probe their sustainable entrepreneurial opportunity recognition. So how well do they recognize when there is an opportunity to create a sustainable venture? We wanted to look at their entrepreneurial orientation, so how comfortable are they with risk? How comfortable are they with setback and failures? How persistent they are? And finally, we want to know, we want to probe their sustainability knowingness. So in other words, how familiar are they with concepts in sustainability? Do they know about the UN sustainability goals, et cetera, et cetera? So how we structured this is we wanted to know we wanted to know the relationship between the socioeconomic conditions and their sustainable entrepreneurial attitudes, and how these attitudes affect their ability to recognize sustainable entrepreneurial opportunities, how well their ability to recognize opportunities then links to entrepreneurial orientation, and then how well their entrepreneurial orientation links to sustainability knowingness. And we wanted to know how all 5 of these factors affect the students' intentions of creating green entrepreneurial ventures. So actual businesses that are going about creating value, real value, creating jobs, but ones that prioritize, the preservation and protection of the environment, or actually bake right into their business model their impact on the environment. So here's the study design. What we want to do, we specifically picked non-business business students.
3 minutes left now.
Okay, we picked, we want to study undergraduate engineering students, 2nd year and above, with no prior training in entrepreneurship. We did a pre-test, post-test study where we first administered a survey, which probed all the variables I talked about. And for each variable, we had 10 to 12 questions, which asked questions related to that. We then hosted an intervention and entrepreneurial education workshop, which was a 1-2 hour in-person workshop. And then afterwards, we administered a post-test survey, exact same survey, but we want to see what effect that 2-hour intervention had on all the variables that I've discussed. Just sharing some of the highlights of the workshop. The workshop was conducted by Dr. Usman and Dr. Yousaf. And in this workshop, they led the students through various exercises to really teach them about green venturing. What is it? For a lot of these students, they never heard of green venturing. And for a lot of these students, they've never even taken courses in sustainability. So it was really a crash course in sustainable entrepreneurship. And I just want to point out some of the results. These are preliminary results. We analyzed the survey using Smart PLS4, and we quantified the correlation between the different variables using a p-value, where a p-value lower than 0.05 indicates a statistically significant correlation. And this is, I just want to note the pre-test. In the pre-test surveys, we noticed some correlation between, let's say, socioeconomic conditions and sustainable entrepreneurship attitudes with green venture intentions. But really, we didn't really notice much correlation between all the other variables that I discussed. After intervention, and it was just 1 2-hour workshop, we noticed much stronger correlations in the different variables that I outlined. And we noticed a general increased inclination towards green entrepreneurial venture creation. I just want to summarize what we found. What we learned from this study is that even small amounts of training can enhance green entrepreneurial venture intentions among students, and in particular, in this case, non-business students. We noticed that entrepreneurial orientation did not have a significant impact on interest in green ventures, although perhaps the study was too short to understand its impact. It might take some time for students to really decide as a career option to pursue green venturing. We noticed that sustainable entrepreneurial attitudes and socioeconomic conditions were strongly correlated to green venture intentions both before and after intervention. And after training, there was a stronger correlation between sustainable entrepreneurial attitudes and green venture creation intentions. What this work hopes to show is that it is important to provide students, even non-business students, with the necessary skills and attitudes for green venturing to equip them to pursue green ventures. And it is recommended from the study that educational institutions focus on providing students, training to students to develop sustainable entrepreneurial attitudes and to be able to recognize sustainable entrepreneurial opportunities. So with that, I'd like to wrap up my presentation and thank everybody for their attention, and I'm happy to take any questions about the study.